Okay, hopefully you guys enjoyed that song as much as I did. Probably not though, but I do want to kind of get into the different parts of an experiment that they talked about in that song, and how we set up testing these questions we might have. So the first part of this is knowing if we have a testable versus a non-testable question. A testable question is something that we can go ahead and do an experiment on and find scientific data or evidence about it. A non-testable question is something that is only opinion. We can't really do an actual scientific experiment on this and get a true answer, because no matter what, people's opinions will vary. So when we think about last Friday, you had an activity where you had to sort out fact versus opinion. In a testable question, we should be able to find out the fact. In a non-testable question, it pretty much comes down to opinion. So what we're looking for in a testable question, this is to make it testable, we need two things. One is something that can change. We need to be able to change something about what we're testing, or at least compare it to how it was previously. So typically in an experiment, you will have two different subjects that you're testing, and you are changing one thing about them. The other thing that you need to have is something that you can measure or make a clear observation about. So the best case in this is that you can actually measure a change. You can use a ruler or some kind of other tool, a graduated cylinder, and you can actually measure change. Or you can at least make an observation. Did this happen? Did we see this result? Did we make this observation? So when you're looking at a testable question, you need two things: something that can change and something that you can measure. Be ready to answer that on the next slide. Okay, an example of a testable question would be one that we're going to use a lot in class, and I think this is just a really easy one to use. And you can change what you're testing here, but my question here is, will a plant grow taller if I water it more? So we need to think about what we're going to change and what we're going to measure. So in this case, will a plant grow taller if I water it more? What I'm changing about these two plants that you see is how much I water it. So my change is going to be if I water it more. Maybe I give one plant 10 milliliters of water a day, and I give the other plant 20 milliliters of water a day. That's what I'm changing about those plants, how much I water them. What I'm going to measure is how tall those plants grow. So if I give one more water, is it going to grow taller? Or maybe it doesn't grow as tall. But at the end of the time where I'm doing this test, I can actually take out a ruler and measure it and say, okay, the one that had 10 milliliters of water grew 17 centimeters, the one with 20 grew 22 centimeters. I can actually change one thing and measure the other thing. That would be a really good example of a testable question, and we're going to come back to this question a little bit later. A non-testable question would be something like, who is the better superhero, Iron Man or Batman? If I look at this question, yeah, there is something I can change or compare. I can change the superhero. I'm comparing Iron Man versus Batman. However, I cannot actually measure better. The better superhero is going to be an opinion. I might be a really big fan of Batman, which I was when I was a kid. You might be a really big fan of Iron Man. So this better superhero part is not something we can actually measure. Now, if I wanted to say who can fly faster, Iron Man or Batman, now I have something that I can actually measure, because it comes down to a fact and using a tool to measure it, not just an opinion. But saying better is almost always going to be a sign that it's a non-testable question, because it just comes down to opinion. In the next slide, you're going to look at 5 testable or non-testable questions, and there is a word bank at the bottom. I want you to fill in the blanks on the page with whether that question is testable or non-testable. All you need to do is click on the word, slide it up, and drop it right into the spot that it belongs, and then you can click next. So take a look at those 5 testable questions and see if you think they are, or 5 questions, see if you think if they are testable or non-testable. Once you're done with that, if you are in cohorts 1 through 4, you're going to stop after the next slide. There will be a sign telling you to stop. And if you are in cohorts 5 through 9, you're going to keep on going and finish this, including your Google form.